seeing the explosion in interest of people of all different types in the ideas of liberty. We talk about how we're not quite there yet, but damn it, we're getting pretty close to where these ideas and things like that have percolated through, the mainstream, and people are aware of them at least now.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Mark Claire.
Welcome on back, my friends, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to advance the ideas of liberty, and that's what we do here at the Lions of Liberty podcast, and it's what we're going to do today here in episode 111. Now, before we get into the show today, I would be remiss to not tell you about this amazing concept of health sharing and the package that our sponsors from Health Excellence Select have put together. If you have been frustrated with your health insurance, as I once was myself, head on over to lionsofliberty.com/health for more information. My guest today is the founder of the Liberty Maniacs clothing line, which has found him in a legal battle with some little-known government agencies such as the NSA and DHS over copyright claims, as well as, most recently, with the Hillary Clinton campaign. And he's here to discuss this with me today. Dan McCall, welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast.
Hey, thanks, Mark, for having me on the Lions of Liberty podcast. It's great to be with you.
And it's great to have you here, man. And, I like to have cool guest on. I like what you're doing out there. I like what you're doing with the Liberty Maniac stuff. And it's sad that I only really drew attention to your work through these lawsuits, but in a way, it's some great publicity for you. And we'll talk about all this stuff in a minute. But first, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So why don't you just tell everybody out there how you first got interested in the ideas of liberty? How did you start walking down this liberty trail?
Oh, man, it's about 15 to almost 20 years ago now. When I think about it, I feel I'm getting old here. But, like a lot of people, kind of meandering path. I'd always been kind of into art and an artist and done stuff like that. And I found myself in art school and, kind of a classic art school in Minnesota, out in the Twin Cities. And I was, after high school, so I was in my 20s. And as I was doing, I loved it and everything, and classic drawn people and, nudes and all this stuff. And, what's not to love? But what I found myself doing is, as I started reading some of these, what some of your listeners are probably well aware of guys like, Ludwig von Mises and economists and other guys like Hayek. And I found myself like skipping out of art school and going to the library and reading about this stuff. So finally, I was like, okay, I became an art school dropout and ended up going to college and kind of pursuing my interest in that, and you run a Liberty podcast. So you were well aware as once it kind of gets into your veins, sometimes you just have to follow that, that addiction. So that happened with me. And I ended up going to college. I was kind of going on the path to being a lawyer. And, and thankfully, for myself anyway, I ended up veering off that. And by the time I finished up college as an undergrad, I switched gears and I kind of found my path with Liberty Maniacs and kind of experimenting with my art and stuff like that, and then found an audience. So that's kind of how it drew me in. And at that same time, as I started doing this stuff, the Liberty movement started to really, some interesting stuff started to happen, namely some of the Ron Paul stuff, especially his second presidential campaign after he ran as a libertarian. But in 2007, I had been doing Liberty Maniacs for a few years, but then also it was just sort of this explosion of interest. And I could see all these young people, young and old really, all over the world really, like starting to buy my stuff and finding an interest in it. And so I kind of slowly turned it into my career in terms of building the site and doing what I do now. So it was a fun, really interesting path. And it's just crazy to think that it's been over 15 years that I've been doing it. But
wow, that's really interesting that you were kind of ahead of the curve in a way before the Liberty movement, the modern Liberty movement, I guess you might call it, really picked up steam with Ron Paul's campaigns. You already had Liberty Maniacs set up and rolling and everything. That's really interesting because to me, Liberty wasn't remotely mainstream. The word might be, a lot of Republicans might toss the word around, but liberty as we know it, philosophical individual liberty, that was really Ron Paul bringing that onto the mainstream stage in 2007. So it's really interesting that you were already not only into it yourself as I was. I'd followed Ron Paul since college. A good friend of mine had referred me to his writing, and I just love the guy. I love the way he approached issues. I love that he was looking at things in terms of individual rights, not in terms of just, collectivism or what's going to benefit a Republican or a Democrat or that kind of thing. And then I was just kind of blown away when this guy comes out and announces he's running for president. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. We're supposed to be niche. Like, I'm supposed to be like alone in my basement reading like Hayek. I'm not supposed to be talking about this stuff with more people, but just like you said, that addiction thing, I think it's one thing to really feel it in yourself and decide you're a philosophical libertarian. But when you really get that inspiration that you can't keep it to yourself anymore and you have to find ways to express it, there's really no way to stop that I've found yet. I've only every week I end up putting more and more into it and not less. So if anyone finds a cure to this liberty addiction, let me know. But for now, I guess I'm just going to keep rolling with this stuff.
It's more of a maintenance thing, right? It's in your blood. It's like a lifelong condition, and you just have to maintain, I think. And so obviously, you can hear it in your voice that it's an outlet. It's a creative outlet, and you got to kind of tap that vein. You gotta let it out. So.
I think it's important to have an outlet too, because I've really found that now that I do this podcast all the time and I write every day, I used to get in the liberty conversations constantly. I mean, everywhere I went, you couldn't avoid it. And that's good. I mean, I still do that in real life. But the fact that I have this outlet and that I, twice a week, I'm just spouting my nonsense, that it really gives me that ability to kind of chill out a little bit in real life. I don't need to bring it up every time I see a political issue on TV. I don't need to start talking to whoever happens to be unlucky enough to be sitting next to me.
So what you're saying, Mark, is your friends and family really appreciate that you have an outlet, right?
Yes.
Now.
They love my podcast, and not necessarily because they listen to it, but many of them do also,
Right, yeah.
No,
that's the same thing here. I found when I was, especially in college, you probably had the same thing. When you get kind of ignited by the flames of liberty, however you want to say it, and that's kind of a cheesy way, I guess, but
it's cheesy, but it's true.
It's true, Yeah, it lights a fire in you. And I remember in college just doing the most inane, just stupid stuff, trying to stoke conversations, and inevitably you get the looks from people like, what? I don't want to hear this, or whatever. So that was kind of how I meandered into doing what I did, because at that time, the internet was still pretty new. The certainly the movement the way it is now was really new, and so it was just, that was something that even kind of caught fire with me even more, was that when I could make something, there was someone even at this point there'd be people even in Germany and stuff buying posters and shirts. And that was just like, wow, okay. Because you do really, back then, you really kind of felt like you were, one of the three guys in your college that believed this stuff, or whatever. And so you just felt so alone. And when people kind of responded to it, really for me, the internet was the only platform, the only place that I could have really, done what I did. I couldn't certainly have put up a corner shop and done anything and had,
That's what I was going to say. If you opened up the Liberty Maniac store in Minneapolis, you might not last too long. As much as I like to think they'd be flocking in. But when you have this outlet now on the internet, literally billions of people could find your stuff now.
Right. Yeah. That's what's incredible to me. So it has been fun. And certainly over the past 10 years, but really the past 5-6 years, seeing the explosion in interest of people of all different types in the ideas of liberty. We kind of all talk about how we're not quite there yet, but damn it, we're getting pretty close to where these ideas and things like that have percolated through, the mainstream, and people are aware of them at least now. Maybe not all agree, but, you can kind of see some of these, what was it, last week? I forget who did the poll, but they were saying, it was in the press a little bit, that a good portion, I don't know if it was 20% or 25% of people in America sort of thought of themselves as libertarian. Now, who knows if they were really, clear on what that meant or what they meant by that. But, it's certainly different than it was 10 years ago. I know that. And so that always gets me going. I'm sure it gets you going too, doing your podcast and getting conversations started. But it's pretty electrifying.
Well, sure. I might even be a little too obsessed with stats sometime. I think I've gotten a little better, and I try not to look that often. But it is inspiring. You do need to know at some point that I'm not just talking to this microphone, and maybe not just to the one guest I'm talking to at a time. Right. At some point, you'd have to confirm that there's a reason to do this. But it is great to see, especially when I see a little dot in some other country. I see a dot that says someone listened in Ukraine. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I've never been to Ukraine. Why is someone? I get it when my friends in LA are listening. That makes sense. But why the hell is someone in Ukraine listening to me? It's crazy, but they do. And that's the beauty of the internet. We have the ability with this technology to reach so many more people. And that's why I'm really optimistic, even though so many things look so bad on the surface. We have the ability, at least, to really affect change on a global scale, which is really incredible. Something that we could never say 20 years ago, that people here in the United States could just reach someone in China or in the Ukraine. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about your Liberty Maniacs. I mean, it's going great. Obviously, the Ron Paul campaigns and the picking up of the Liberty movement, it really helped bring attention to your work and your clothing line. And then things took a little bit of a turn, and you received, I guess, a letter from, I think you actually received, I'll let you tell the story, but was it first from Cafe Press that you received the alert that they were going to have to pull your products down? Or tell everybody how this all went down.
Yeah, it was, I got a notice by the wrong folks, I guess. In a way, I guess it ended up working out, but it was about, it's 2 years ago now, in 2013. It was just days really after the revelations that Edward Snowden was the leaker of the NSA information about, widespread surveillance, the American population in the world. And the whole thing was going on. I think he was still in China, and there were questions as to where he was going to go. So, of course, me doing what I was doing, I had, already done parodies of the NSA and things like that. So I put something up, and I came up with a shirt idea that was, I thought was funny at the time, just kind of taking their logo and making a play off it, and just putting, the NSA, the only part of government that actually listens, and having their logo and have it peeping while you're sleeping instead of the United States of America. I thought it was cute. I put it up without, it's something that I do all the time. So it wasn't something that I was like, all right, this is going to go up and I'm going to piss people off here because, I've done the IRS and all this stuff. That's kind of just what I've been doing. So, so I put it up there, and one of the companies that I've been working with and that had allowed me kind of to have this platform and produce kind of products in a volume that wouldn't be otherwise possible for this type of thing was Zazzle. And I had been working with them for a long time. And I was actually the first independent, brand that they brought in 2007, a while back. It had been a really good relationship with them. And I got notified by them like 3 hours after I had put this shirt up that it had to be taken down due to copyright infringement. And I kind of looked at it and went, what the heck? And I read the email, and it said the intellectual property holder made a claim against this. And so, looking at the email, the NSA would be who they're talking about, I think. So I had to have a good relationship with them. So I gave them a chat back and tried to get a hold of them and see what was going on. And no reply for days, really, was what happened. And that was just something that had never happened. So I started to go, oh, God, what is going on here? And after, trying to figure out for a while what happened, it took me getting my lawyer to sort of get it out of them what happened. And sure enough, they had been given cease and desist letters for my stuff, and actually had, unbeknownst to me, after, it actually took the suit to find this out and a lot of investigation, that they had been kind of trolling me since 2011. And they had originally taken down some stuff, some mugs and stuff like that that I had done, and we just found out about it now. And Zazzle had been, now hindsight's 2020. It was become obvious that they were so afraid that they didn't even notify me. It was mum's the word basically when they were notified by the NSA.
It's weird when we're nervous over like removing mugs and stuff. I mean, it seems so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous, and then it's like there's this. It's chilling too. It's kind of like this company was so afraid they didn't want to mess. And there could have been a multitude of reasons that they did. Maybe they had, I think they have contracts with people. I don't know what they're doing business with them. I don't know, but you can see. I mean, there. I guess long and short of it, you can see the argument where they're afraid legally, but in terms of just common sense and just general decency, and there's no reason they should have done it. At least they could have notified me that there was an issue. So long and short of it, we, after talking with my lawyer, we found out that it was all actually the Department of Homeland Security had been doing the same thing. And they were using a very similar justification. The NSA was using the justification that we were using their logo and their identity without permission. And so any use or even use of the acronym NSA or the National Security Agency, using that on any sort of product or anything, it had to have the express permission from the director of the NSA, which is just, profoundly screwed up.
like you're gonna call him up and, hey, I'm working on these T-shirts. Is it cool if I mean, it's absurd.
Just stupid. So after that, the DHS had a similar claim. Theirs was just a defacement, so you couldn't use anything that had to do with the Department of Homeland Security and deface its logo or anything like that. Some weird thing that basically kind of made up regulation or law that they had. So, or justification. So we ended up kind of talking about it. We convinced a little bit about it, and we decided to go for it. And we ended up going after and suing them over a violation of my First Amendment and misuse of copyright law. So, and that was, I guess, November is when we actually ended up filing. So it took a few months to get everything lined up and actually file in court in Maryland, federal court. And so it was kind of over the holidays and stuff like that. We had to kind of wait and see what was going to go on. And finally, in February, we were notified that the NSA was going to, actually, after the story had kind of taken air across the country and the world, they finally settled out of court and decided to repay my legal fees or my filing fees, which was like $500, but then also issue a statement that what they did was incorrect and that they wouldn't do it again. So, which was, in my view, is fine. I still would have liked to have sort of a defeat, and I mean, I'm happy that it ended up the way it was. I would have liked to set a little stronger precedent. Because it wasn't, it was soon after that. It was actually almost a year to the day after that I got another situation that was similar with Hillary Clinton's folks with her PAC trying to take down a parody that I did that was kind of making fun of her "I'm ready for Hillary," which is, and I converted it to "I'm ready for oligarchy," and put it out there. And sure enough, her lawyers came after and tried to do a similar thing. So. It's one of these things that I don't know if I see an end to it, but it's what I'm seeing lately, or I guess the whole time is these entities, these people, and these groups using copyright law and intellectual property to basically stifle free speech and fair use and parody and satire, and it's something that's I'm hoping that something like these cases do something to sort of give them pause when people are trying to use IP to shut you down, but we'll see what happens this coming election on my end.
It seems a little crazy because, I mean, it's pretty well established that, there is such a thing as fair use for logos and stuff like that. And it's not like you were putting out NSA T-shirts acting as if you are the NSA and trying to misrepresent yourself as a DHS agent. I mean, you're using them as a parody, and that there's plenty of legal precedent that shows that people can do that as far as parodies go. And yet they still came after you. So do you think they were just hoping that, you're not a guy that was going to really fight it, or you weren't going to go get a lawyer? You were just going to roll over and say, oh, well, I guess I can't use it.
Yeah, that actually was one of the more difficult things to be honest, because because it became pretty clear that was the case. And one of the reasons I know that is because I could sense the chilling effect in terms of when I talk to other artists and other people, they're very afraid, very tentative to kind of do the same thing. And I've known that that's been the case. Making fun of the government isn't always as much as it should be, it's not one of the most popular things to do.
It can be a risky proposition.
Yeah, it can be risky. And people understand that. I mean, I'm not saying that maybe people were a little bit more wise than I am, but it's probably really true. but yeah, it was, the way that people reacted to it, especially in the creative sort of world, was kind of interesting. So, and I knew early on dealing with the situation that, for a guy like me, who's, a small voice in this deal, it was really important to kind of get the word out there, and so that people knew what was going on. And, and my lawyer certainly was on that side too, and hounding me to get out there and let people know how absurd it was. And to this day, I know the only thing that allowed me to win this situation and to prevail was the support of people, and that word spread. And that really started out in independent media, talking to guys like Ben Swan and stuff like that got the word out there. And then I knew after that the wider sort of the long tail of the news had to kind of pick it up. Otherwise I was dead in the water. So eventually that did, whether they were reluctant or not. I think at one point it was on the Drudge Report, and it was kind of the top story for the day. And then then it started getting picked up the story about the NSA from there. But yeah, I think it wasn't until it hit critical mass in the news that there was any chance that I was going to win and they were going to back down. It was one of those things where I think they had to be so publicly shamed that they were going to back down. But, maybe not, but that's certainly what it seemed like to me.
Well, you got all that attention. You're on Drudge. Your story's all over the place, and hey, now you finally hit the big time and landed on Lions of Liberty. So
exactly.
This is working out great.
That's right, baby.
Dan, I hate to interrupt our conversation, but we got to take a little time to give some love to our sponsors over at Health Excellence Select. Believe me, guys, I know nobody likes dealing with health insurance companies. It's bad enough that you're sick, but now, thanks to the ACA, you're forced to pay for all sorts of coverage you don't even want or need, and the odds are you are indeed paying for it. I was frustrated too until I did some research and found out about health sharing, where like-minded, health-conscious individuals get together to cover each other's medical costs. And now the fine folks at Health Excellence Select have taken it to another level with a complete healthcare service, combining health sharing with personal care assistance to help you find the doctors that you need at the best price, 24/7 phone access to physicians, along with discounts on dental and vision. And if that wasn't enough, they even have a website that works, if you can believe that. Guys, if you are struggling with a solution to your healthcare needs, look no further than Health Excellence Select. For more information, head on over to lionsofliberty.com/health. You were having a pretty successful clothing line, but at the same time, suddenly these guys come in with their lawsuits, and now you're getting free advertising. Now you got a free ad on the Drudge Report. I mean, now you got free ads all over the place. You're going to get a free ad on Lions of Liberty. I mean, it might be one of the best things that could have happened to you at the end of the day, although I'm sure you had to go through a lot of stress and money and that kind of thing. So did they compensate you as well as part of this agreement then? I know you mentioned there was financial compensation, but did you were able to recoup your costs, or did they put you in a financial hole at all?
It worked out pretty good because I was able to, all I got recouped was the filing fee. But because we didn't go to trial and we didn't do anything, it didn't get any further than that. I mean, if it would have gone, thankfully my lawyer, Paul Allen Levy, who's sort of a crusader in this area of free speech and in terms of copyright and things like that. And he's, I would say, probably one of the top guys out there that deals with this. And I was very lucky to have him. And the other thing, he worked with me pro bono on there. So that helped out a lot. I mean, I would have probably gone bankrupt very fast if I had to foot the whole bill and the whole thing. So at the same time, it was nice to get the support. It was kind of one of those situations where you have free advertising, but it was also one of those things that was kind of a necessary deal. I certainly didn't get rich off the deal, that's for sure. But
right.
It was one of those things that to experience out there, there's so many great things about it. That was, just to kind of troll the government itself has been part of what I do and have a lot of fun with. But the other side of it was, sort of the darker side. And I didn't, when I was going through it, I didn't necessarily even try to think about some of the more scarier aspects, because it didn't take long talking to people where they're saying, well, have fun with your audit and this and the other thing, and talking to people that were actually, because you get to meet great people and interesting people. And some of the people that were actually in the intelligence community were giving me some pretty scary, possibilities of things that could happen and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't until I stopped and after the fact.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit? I mean, were they going to whisk you away to Guantanamo or something?
Yeah, and that's kind of at first I joke about that kind of stuff. And then, there is some things that happened through that whole period that were pretty incredible that I can't really even bring up. But things with my family and stuff like that actually got kind of scary. And
like threatening phone calls,
yeah,
or
a little,
something like that.
Definitely. I was definitely on a list, let's put it that way. And so when that stuff started happening, and thankfully some of that stuff I didn't know until after it had all kind of cleared, happened, then that was that was troubling. So there was some time. It wasn't all fun, that's for sure. But it did go. There's some great parts of it too. I mean, throughout that, I actually got to, help out with Edward. I'm a big fan of Edward Snowden and what he did. And I got to work with him and his group to, get his website up and do some fundraising and stuff like that for them.
So you're working directly with the Snowden people then?
I haven't been doing much lately or anything like that, because that was the early times. I mean, back at that point, it was pretty cool. I mean, they came to me. This was a time when he had just gotten into Moscow, And he was, I mean, there wasn't even any pictures. We just had the pictures from the Guardian and stuff of him, and those were everywhere. So they kind of came to me and said, we got to get his site up. Can you give us a hand? And so I helped them do some stuff like that. And I did some portraits and stuff that we could put up on the site because there just really wasn't any pictures. And can you at least send me a snapshot of them? Because, like, no, we can't send anything. So there's a lot of interesting things that happened with that. And, certainly I'll remember that period for the rest of my life, to be able to be kind of part of that whole thing. It was really amazing. So, but yeah, it's, if I was to do it again, I'd certainly do it again. But
it's like the best time you never want to have again, pretty much.
Right.
It's how I've heard friends describe sort of like basic training in the Army like that.
Right.
It's an amazing time that you absolutely never want to do again.
Yeah, right. It was actually a weird thing, just a weird side. I was watching that Shoot the Messenger, that show about the movie that came out a while back. And for some reason, not to even close to compare myself to that or anything like that, but it was just like, it was finally a time where I kind of was watching the movie, and here this journalist was going against the tide, basically against the government, exposing things that they didn't, want exposed.
That's the movie. That's the one with Jeremy Renner about him exposing the basically the CIA drug dealing. Is that the one you're talking about?
Correct. Yeah. And so for whatever reason, I was sitting there with my wife watching that, and I was just almost in tears. Like, I hadn't really thought about the things that could happen. And for whatever reason, I was like, oh God, I was terrible. Like, what did I just do? And this was over a year afterwards. So
well,
you never know.
Hopefully they're not nearly as threatened by your T-shirts as they were by someone, uncovering their entire drug smuggling operation. So,
and like I say, I wouldn't even put myself in that category, but it's just, it's a little scary, but but fun too. And hopefully we won't have to. I won't have to make those same kind of parodies. But I look forward to kind of, that's one of the fun things about what I do is being able to kind of digest the news and spit out stuff like this. So it's a nice opportunity.
I'll tell you, I'm already looking forward to, as soon as I hang up with you, I'm going to go check out. Are you selling these ready for oligarchy bumper stickers right now, or have you had to sort of cease operations?
No, we got those.
Because I want one of those, because I tell you what, I'm out here in Los Angeles, so you can imagine, I see these Hillary stickers everywhere, and I just really want to put one of those things on my car. So I will be on your store shortly.
That was the impetus. They were, in Minnesota too, they're pretty ubiquitous. I mean, everywhere I was going, and that was the thing. I'm staring at this bumper sticker on the road, and then on the radio comes a story about how Jeb Bush is going to run for president probably, and this whole thing. I'm like, oh my God! I mean, this is so that meme was born then.
Are we going to get some Jeb parodies in our future here?
Oh yeah, I think I'm looking forward to this election coming up. I always kind of gear up for these, because it's one of those times when, people are just kind of cute. It's one time where even the average person kind of pays attention. And so it's an opportunity to kind of, to get some jabs in, to kind of communicate ideas that they might not otherwise pay attention to. And just the cast of characters this time, I think, is going to be hilarious.
One of these guys will be president aspect. It's scary as hell, but from a pure comedy aspect, the possibilities, and a parody aspect for you, the possibilities are really unlimited with this crew they're gathering here. It's almost like you guys can't be serious.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of burning the midnight oil here.
Sure. Yeah. So I can picture some stuff with Huckabee. Lindsey Graham says he's getting in the race. I mean, the possibilities are unlimited with these guys, especially with some of the dumb crap that these guys have said over the years. I mean, there's so many t-shirt ideas, and I look forward to seeing them all, Dan. I look forward to seeing more of your work. Now, before I let you go, why don't you just give everybody sort of the wrap up, and I guess also update us on what's going on with this current situation with the Clinton campaign. Hopefully that gets resolved pretty soon. Hopefully they'll just look at your agreement with NSA and DHS and see that, that they're obviously in the wrong here too. But why don't you let everybody know how they can get in contact with you, how they can find your stuff, how they can find all the great products that you're producing over at Liberty Maniacs.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Yeah, just head on down to libertymaniacs.com, and you'll see our site. You'll see all sorts of shirts and posters and all that kind of stuff, and our blog. And, there's a bunch of different places where you can actually shop, from Zazzle to even places on Amazon and things like that to find our stuff. But easiest place is right on libertymaniacs.com, and check us out.
Dan McCall, thanks a lot. And I'm sitting here while you're talking to me, looking at your website, and I'm literally picking out stuff I'm going to get. So I'm not full of it. You're going to see an order from me pretty soon. And I encourage you guys to check out Dan's stuff too. We will obviously link to all his stuff in the show notes for this show. Dan, thanks a lot for joining me, and keep up the great work. And take these Hillary people down a notch, maybe.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Take care, Dan.
Good time. Thanks.
All right, guys, what a great guy Dan McCall is, huh? I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and I'm really enjoying Liberty Maniacs. I don't know if you guys have checked this site out, and I'm going to give some free advertising right now, but Liberty Maniacs is an awesome website. I've been browsing it. They got some really cool t-shirts, really cool stuff. So, head over there, check it out, and help support Dan, this guy who is fighting the good fight and fighting it in a fun way, fighting it through parody, fighting it through cool t-shirts. And let me tell you, you might say, what's a t-shirt going to do? What's a bumper sticker going to do? And on its own, a t-shirt or a bumper sticker might not do anything, but you never know when something can catch someone's eye. When a Ron Paul bumper sticker might send someone to go, hey, who's this Ron Paul guy? And Google him. Or a Ready for Oligarchy bumper sticker might make someone Google oligarchy and find out what that is. Many people don't realize what oligarchy is. Many people don't realize that there's a study that came out in the last year that statistically proves by looking at the last 10, 15 years that we live in an oligarchy. It's a system essentially controlled by a few powerful elite, and they give us the sort of illusion of choice. But at the end of the day, when your choice in 2016 might be Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush, and then back in 1992, over 20 years ago, it was Bill Clinton and George Bush. Now look, I don't think that people who are related to people who have held office should be, specifically barred from running for president and running for office, but in a country of over 300 million people, many of which are extremely bright and intelligent and accomplished, it seems a little odd that in a 30-year period, we might have two presidential elections featuring two members of the same families against each other. It's absolutely crazy, and it seems like that is exactly the matchup, so to speak, that is being set up for us. And no, I'm not really one of the Alex Jones conspiracy theorists who thinks the New World Order is manipulating everything in order to dominate the world. I don't necessarily believe that. There's one guy in a back room puffing on a cigar, pulling all the strings. But there is a concerted effort to control the system by a certain amount of people who have a certain amount of money and power. That is undeniable, folks. And that is oligarchy, and that's why I'm glad we got Dan McCall out there bringing attention to this issue, bringing attention to so many issues in a fun and interesting way. And it might suck that the NSA and the DHS came after him. Might suck that the Hillary Clinton campaign came after him. But hey, that's how I found out about Liberty Maniacs, and I imagine that's how a lot of other people are going to be finding out about Liberty Maniacs. Perhaps some of those people are finding out listening to this show right now, so I highly encourage you to check out Liberty Maniacs. We will link to it at the show notes page, lionsofliberty.com/111. And until next time, my friends, why don't you go ahead and live long and live free of frivolous copyright claims.
Editing and mastering is John Doggart.